Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
And now for our main speaker, Bob N.
Alcoholic, my name's Bob. Wow. See how quiet? Look at that. First things first is one of the things that, one of the mottos that you see on the signs on the wall of Alcoholics Anonymous. And so first things first come the caveats. I'd like to thank Tracy for inviting me to come over here and participate in my own recovery tonight. I'd like to thank all of you for paying a 12-step call on me here tonight, by being here, being of service to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, by taking up a seat in the rooms, which is a good way for you newcomers to be of service when you don't feel like doing anything nice for anybody else. You know, you just take up a seat, you know, and that's a really terrific way of being of service, because if somebody stumbled into this meeting, you know, looking for help and didn't see anybody sitting here, they would think that AA didn't work. The fact that this room is full of such quiet alcoholics, you know, it's proof positive to me that there's something going on here that's magical and that I don't understand really, you know. And I also like to get the other caveats out of the way. You know, I don't know anything. Everything I know today that's worth anything at all, I've learned in rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous from people like yourselves. And, you know, our stories disclose in a general way what we were like, what happened, and what we're like now. And when I got to this program that I neither wanted nor needed, I knew everything there was to know about everything in the world. And what I was like, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. And then something happened. And the healing power of the mighty Spirit came into my heart. And now I'm here, not for you, but for myself. I wish I could say I came over here tonight for you, you know, especially for you newcomers who've been told that you're the most important person in the room. And in my opinion, that's bogus. Because I'm the most important person in this room, man. And if anybody's going to get loaded in here tonight, better you all should get loaded than me. That's the way I feel about my sobriety. I suggest you adopt the same attitude. Because the moment's going to come, they say, and in my experience more than once, when I haven't been able to find an emotional or intellectual reason to stay clean and sober. I don't do it to impress you, or the sheriff, or a shrink, or a lover, or a family of any kind. That's not it, you know. There have been times when I have not been able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And yet I'm blessed with continuous sobriety. And in another program, we call it clean time, but it's all the same. You know, I haven't taken anything that's affected me from the neck up. since December 15th, 1977. And for an alcoholic of my type, that's impossible. And I believe that there's miracles that take place in the realm of personality in this program. I don't think the miracle is that I'm sober tonight. I do not think that's a miracle. I think that's lucky. I think the miracle is that I've had a complete change of attitude. And I want to be sober tonight. I don't have to be sober tonight. I want to be sober tonight. I didn't have to start my life over. I got to start my life over. I'm not responsible for some of the things that I did under the influence of narcotics and alcohol. But I am responsible for every breath that I take in sobriety. And that includes trying to make reparation for a lot of that stuff in the past. I'm one of those people that has 9th steps to effect that I'll never be able to make to living human beings. There are people that have passed on. There are people that I will never see again. There are anonymous people and institutions that I've harmed, that there are no way of making amends to except by me doctoring my behavior so that I don't commit those acts anymore. See, my character defects, I was told at the very beginning to make friends with my character defects. They're going to be with me for a very long time. And that's been my experience. My job today, as I see it, is to try to keep my character defects from ruining your lives as much as possible. When people cut me off on the 405, it's tire tool time, man. It's Mac 10 out the window time. But I don't act on those impulses these days. Although I did get a speeding ticket on San Vicente the other day. See, one of the great things about being a second speaker is the first speaker and all the birthday people say everything important that there is to say. And, it kind of ties in, with what my sponsor said once. He called me and he said, I heard you spoke at Malibu last week. It was a few years ago. And I said, yeah. And he said, I heard, somebody said you were funny. I said, well, I don't know if I was funny or not. He said, well, just remember, you don't have the damn message. He said, I don't have the message, and Chuck didn't have the message, and Clancy doesn't have the message. He said, if people come to an AA meeting to get the message, they're going to get the message no matter who the speaker is. We're just here to entertain. And that's a big load off my shoulders, Because, see, I don't have a program that's worth shooting, really. My program is terrible compared to yours. That's the way I see it. I look around this room and I see all these smiling, laughing alcoholics, and I go, God, they've got their shit together, man. What about me? And I'm the speaker, man. Jesus. What the hell am I supposed to say? Keep coming back. I don't know how AA works. Herb knows how AA works. Vernon, the mayor of AA, knows how it works. I don't know how it works. God, it works like by, like an unseen hand or something. As if there was like a power, a higher power of some sort, like working around here. Something that was unknowable, and something you can't see, but with your eyes. It's as if like, I don't know, it's like as if it was spiritual or something. It's like, the spiritual part of this program is like the wet part of the ocean, man. If you're here, you're in it. That's the way it is. If you wish you knew how to pray, you're praying. That's what prayer is, man. If you got an alcoholic friend that you hoping they make it, you're praying for them. It's like if you have a kid, or an innocent under your care. I mean, you want the very best for that person. You see them and, you want the very best for them. You want to give them, like as Vernon said, a cloak of gold and get them a room in the Taj Mahal, man, And that's praying for them. In my humble... with a capital H. Temple of Serenity, and step on it. God, it's like alcoholism. Okay? It's like an egomaniac with an inferiority complex who feels capable of ruling the planet, I mean, these Dodgers are driving me so damn nuts, I am going to go out to the stadium and kick some ass personally. I'm going to go on the field and start whooping on people. I say, when the ball comes down, you put your glove under it. For $83,000 a game, stoop and fall in front of the goddamn ball and stop it from going through the infield. Jesus, I can't take it anymore. I tried to switch allegiances to the Angels. God, it's unbelievable. And you think that's rough, man. What am I going to do with Kosovo? I got to get that straightened out now. And what about the space platform? I got to deal with that. You need a drink to deal with this stuff, man. This is heavy-hitting stuff. Los Angeles is the 1/1,000,000th worst place to raise a child in the history of the planet Earth or something. What am I going to do about that? It's just alcoholism. It's crackers. I got it. I got it. And the trick is to make it fun to have it. See, the trick for me is to make this an adventure instead of doing time. And how do I do that? Well, let me see if I got this straight now. You want me to turn my life and my will in its entirety over to the care of something I don't believe in. Is that it? You want me to somehow conjure in my mind this great healing paternal spirit that's going to get me out of these cul-de-sacs that I construct out of titanium for myself. Is that correct? Because, it's easy to say, oh yeah, I believe in God. That's easy to say that. I've always had God in my life. Now that I'm sober, when I look back on my life, I see the many times when God intervened and saved me from a fate worse than death. Sure, I believe in God. I'm turning my life and my will over to the care of God, even as I stand here. Well, that's sort of like, concept calisthenics. Because as I stand here babbling into this microphone, I'm also running a marathon, and losing 20 pounds, It's like, where does this reality, and spirituality and metaphysics, where do they conjoin? Where do they come together? The great mystery of life. Fortunately, within the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, a brain-damaged drug addict alcoholic myself runs into spiritual guides from time to time who drop a nugget of priceless information into my brain pan, where it takes hold until I can metabolize it into action, And I'd like to tell you about a couple of those things as soon as I qualify as an alcoholic. Now, first of all, can I see the hands of everybody in this room who doesn't think I'm an alcoholic? That takes care of that. That cut 20 minutes right there. And because You know, if you believe I'm an alcoholic, and if you believe that I haven't had anything that affects me from the neck up for 22 and a half years, then, and you perceive by taking my inventory, which I hope that you're doing, you know, if you perceive that I am stark raving mad and in the process of being restored to sanity in God's own time, then you have to wonder, well, how does a wacko like that, you know, receive the gift of sobriety? How does this happen? Well, you know, it happens by magic. It happens by coming to meetings. It happens by eroding my ego wall to the point where I start to care a little bit about you. You know, not a whole lot, you know, at least initially, but a little bit, you know. When a misanthrope stops hating everybody, you know, when a sociopath stops hating everybody that crosses their path, you know, it's the healing begins. And this is a program of attraction, not promotion. And you can't keep it unless you give it away. But you can't give it away unless you have it. And the only way you can get it is when you get a hold of the idea that you can't stay alive unless you find it. Then you get desperate enough to start looking for it. And if you're really, really blessed for the second time, somebody steps in front of you and says, well, why don't you try doing this? You know, and it could be like, why don't you try being a greeter? Why don't you try setting up chairs? Why don't you try making coffee? Why don't you try picking up butts in the, you know, something that you're convinced has nothing to do with your particular case of alcoholism, which is, of course, different than everybody else's case of alcoholism. There's this ridiculously short book, 164 pages long, called Alcoholics Anonymous, that Billy convinced me has a sum total of all the knowledge in the universe within its first 164 pages. And you know, I tend to believe it because somebody else told me this program was American Zen. You know, and every time I read those 164 pages, they grow new sentences. And they say different things. It's like poetry, man. You know? And if you're as crazy as I am, I suggest you just jump in feet first and see if I'm lying. Because the adventure for me is to see if there is a higher power working in my life. That's the adventure. If you don't believe in God, I was told, ask him for the impossible. Ask him for a day of sobriety. Don't ask him for a week of sobriety, just ask him for a day of sobriety. You know, if you're willing to go to any lengths, you can find out for yourself if there's a God or not. I had to sit on my hands and watch the second hand of a Westclock's alarm clock go around. It took me 2.5 years to be willing to find out what you people were doing in here. 2.5 years of waking up with a crick in my neck and a rage in my heart towards my fellow man. 2.5 years of like saying, you know, I don't want to be part of this. You know, and the reason I think that there's a power greater than myself at work in my life is for those 2.5 years, I went to meetings. I went to meetings that I hated going to. I went to meetings full of people that I didn't like. I told my sponsor, I don't like these people. He said, I didn't ask you to like them. I asked you to love them. I said, well, how do you love people if you don't even like them? He said, you see, you dumb bastard, you don't even know what love is. He said, you think it takes place in the back of your car. How did he know that? You know, how does he know that stuff about me? How did these old crackers from Vermont and write the 6th grade syntax back in 1935 and write my, you know, hip, slick, cool, junkie story into it? How did they know that? How did they know that I had pitiful and incomprehensible demoralization, you know, 30 years after that? You know, I'm from Akron, Ohio. I recognize prairie gibberish when I see it. You can't fool me, I'm too ignorant. My cousin used to say that at the dinner table. You can't fool me, I'm too ignorant. You sure are, Bobby. And you know how to play doctor, too. So look, what's the point, really? What's the point? The point seems to be that if you look at these 12 suggested steps of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous that are, in my opinion, designed to get me to do precisely those things which I have no intention of ever doing, and I make a little sort of pencil neck kind of approach to tentatively following these steps, that hideous alcoholic fear that if you be an alcoholic of my type, I'm not talking about the one, about seeing how fast you can go on your bike, or how long you can wait before you pull your main chute, or how big a wave you can ride. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff, man, or like, hey, put that gun down, nobody's getting shot in here tonight, asshole. I'm not talking about that terror. Oh, please, God, don't let that guy in the next cell get to me in the shower, please, man. I'll never do it again, whatever it was. I'm not talking about that fear. I'm talking about that hideous, unnameable, something bad is going to happen fear. I can't see it coming, and I don't know what it is, but something bad's going to happen. And I can't take that fear, man. I can't take it. And the only thing I've ever found that took away that fear were drugs, alcohol, and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I asked my sponsor, why, after I got into the habit of waking up dead, why did people breathe air into my lungs all the time? Why do people walk me around cheap hotel rooms, and throw me into cold showers and pack my nuts in ice and do all kinds of other stuff? Why? And he said, because you got work to do. And you're not going to get paid for it. It's for fun and for free. He said, your work is to stay sober and help other alcoholics achieve sobriety if they want it. Because this program is for people who want it, not people who need it. If we were having meetings for people who needed it, this room, way too small for the Malibu area. To line everybody up in the field like when the fire trucks are parked down there. And, how do you become willing to do that, Well, that's the spiritual awakening that those of us who, they also say, like, you newcomers, like, take your first paycheck and buy yourself a dark suit. You're going to bury a lot of people around here. That's been my experience. People who didn't make the program, people who made the program went out, And the recidivism rate around here is horrible. I worked in recovery, and they don't give anybody a chance until you have 5 years in the hospital biz. But in here, we don't deal in business. We deal in spiritual miracles. We deal in brothers and sisters in these rooms. If you don't have the nuts for it, there's a lot of bars around. This isn't for, like, chicken shits in here. This is a life and death deal, for alcoholics of my type. If you don't want to hang around here, don't take up my time, man. I don't want any half AA. At 5:30 in the morning, if I got to make an emergency call, I don't want somebody on the other end, saying, I don't know, man. I hate to get up now. You know, I want somebody who, like the first guy who ever came up to me, Bob, in a meeting, and handed me his card with his number on it and said, you can call me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Even if you're in jail in Tijuana, I'll come and get you. You know, that was my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I thought, what? What does this dude want? Because that's where we're coming from, you know. That's where we're coming from when we get here. Nobody's, you know, there's no heart that breaks like a child's heart, you know. And, you know, by the time we get to this program, we're arrested at that point of childhood where we first got our fix. And it's not necessarily drugs or alcohol. It could be reading or a piece of cake or cookies or fooling around under the blanket, you know, and playing doctor, whatever that does that little, trips that thing and goes, oh man, this is a path that I will follow. And there's something vaguely, you know, forbidden about it. Then if you're an alcoholic of my type, you know, at a certain point in my age, it was around 13, when somebody poured, you know, handed me a vodka tonic and it went down and made me thirsty, and I took another one and another one until the switch clicked. Bang! And I was Frank Sinatra III, man, and I was handsome and bulletproof, and you were mine. You know, it was my life and my party, man, you know. And then somebody slapped me for going a little too far, you know, and then the laughter died. And my answer to that was, to that shame and embarrassment of getting popped in public, was to go right back to the bar for more giggle water and to try to get that laughter back. And that's my drunkalogue. I chased it for the next 25 years. I never hit that note again, except occasionally I would get close when I got all the chemicals just right at the right moment, you know, like 2 reds and 1 yellow and a blue, and, you know, a shot of early times and, you know, a snort of something, and that's it, yes, and uh-oh, I went too far. Oh shit, wow, no, how do I get down? Uh-oh. Oh no, this is STP, not acid. Uh-oh, where's the Thorazine? You know, gobble, 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 you know. I don't want to go to the beach. You know, I'm going to stay in here. I'm going to stay in here and watch Cal Worthington all day. Guy met Cal Worthington once. He is a star, man. That's the biggest star I ever met in Hollywood, was Cal Worthington. So I had a lot of fun drinking and using. It took me places, you know, and I got rewarded for being wacko, and, you know, I got to go a lot of glamorous places and wake up in a lot of exotic beds and use drugs and get drunk with a lot of, you know, people that ordinarily a guy from Akron, Ohio wouldn't be crossing paths with and stuff. You know, and people actually, you know, like sometimes, you know, really thought the work I was doing was beneficial and good, and rewarded me financially for that and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, I had a really full kind of like racy, exotic, you know, let's write a book about it kind of life, you know. In some vague part of my mind, I thought, you know, yeah, I am collecting material for that mini-series about, you know, some kind of like hogwash, you know, concept. But you know, just an ego concept, because it was never going to happen. You know, because like you know, I went past concept art. If you know what concept art, like Joe Kasuth, you know, like I write a beautiful 3 pages about a concept of art, you know, that's not constructible, you know. Or like my friend, you know, like Robert Smithson, who did a great spiral jetty piece, you know, had bulldozers and, you know, and then, you know, crash an airplane, taking a picture of it and stuff. But I went past all that kind of art, man. I went past concept art. I went to the high concept art. High concept in the sense of you had to be there when I thought of it, or you missed it. I did not document it in any way. In fact, if you weren't there when it happened, I didn't even tell you about it. It just happened all in here, and man, I'm telling you, you missed it. It was very cool. But, you know, it left no footprints in the sands of time. So, you know, like, in that sense, you know, the ego drove the alcoholism, you know, into greater and more, you know, megalomaniacal kind of a larger scope of it, you know. I mean, what would be the point of actually working if you could enjoy the best that the drug world had to offer without doing anything? You know what I mean? So when it finally dawned on me that this was an ever-decreasing circle, I sort of became willing to entertain more bizarre thoughts, such as, what would happen if I didn't get high today? And the way it happened for me is I just finished working on a movie in Paris, and I got paid off, and it was Thanksgiving, and I was back here, and I had pockets stuffed with 500 franc notes and $100 bills, and I kept my money, a lot of money in my boot in case I needed to buy something on the way home, like a car or a motorcycle or a house or something, and didn't trust banks. And, you know, and I was like, one night I was smoking opiated hash and drinking champagne with these two girls in West Hollywood, two friends who were girls. And well, they were friends, you know, and they just happened to be girls. And you know, it looked good. Like the rest of my life, it looked really good on the outside. You know, like, yeah, man. One time I was, you know, like used to talk a lot in these, you know, detention camps. And all these kids would say afterwards, wow, man, you know, sounds really cool. I can't wait till I get out of here and rob a drugstore, you know. I say, you don't get it, dude. You know. And anyway, you know, one night I was doing that. And the next day, I was clean and sober. And it wasn't part of the plan. You know, I was trying to hawk some art to this art dealer. And I had a Dos Equis, and I said, would you like a wine? And she said, no, thank you. And I said, well, it's really good wine. She said, no, thank you very much. And I waited about 5 minutes till the oatmeal was like coming out of the pores of my face and stuff. I said, are you sure you wouldn't like a drink of wine? It's sincere and it's really good. And she said, no, thank you very much. And something about the way she said, I said, what the hell's the matter? Are you an alcoholic? She said, yes, I am. And I said, oh my God, man, you know, do you go to those Alcoholics Anonymous meetings? She said, yes, I do. I said, do you go to the ones where, like, those movie stars and producers and musicians go? And she said, yes, would you like to go sometime? And, you know, I had these friends who were in show business that had been suggesting that I might find these meetings kind of interesting, you know? They're saying, you know, like, there's a lot of really attractive people in these, and you'll know some of them, too. And, you know, I'd say, oh, man, please. And they were all sandbagging me, you know, Cindy B. and Bob C. and, like, just a bunch of people. And so, you know, she said, would you like to go sometime? And I said, well, sure, because I'm really open-minded type guy, you know. And I said, when are you going? And I thought she was going to say, well, I'm probably in August. Well, I'm going to go on... If I'm back from the Hamptons, I'll go in August or maybe in September, you know. And she said, in about 20 minutes, and I'll drive. And I said, well, night, you know, and I started to say, I can't go tonight. I have to go to dinner. And then I realized I'd already told her I was free for dinner because I wanted to do this sale. And, you know, I felt this fear, man. I felt that alcoholic fear. And this fear was driving me to do crazy shit. Like, we were all staying in a hotel in Pigalle, this secret little show business hotel in Pigalle, and I was like hanging out all night in these Legionnaire bars and stuff. And I was going up to these guys, you know, on furlough and saying things like, well, how do you tie that scarf then, Louis? Just, Because, I was tired of considering myself a coward, I was like really trying to macho myself up to specs and 140 pounds of dynamite, walking around the streets. And I felt that fear, and I had like gone through this moment of clarity in Paris, and I had realized when I couldn't stop drinking. Because the people in this picture were suggesting that this star of the picture of myself maybe shouldn't get whacked on cognac before trying to do gags in the rain in the railroad yard and stuff. And it was like the insurance wasn't going to cover it. And they were calling like back here and saying, these guys are too drunk to be on this picture. And we were like propped in the phone booth saying, we're not drunk. What the hell are they talking about? And I had this moment of clarity, man, where I realized that I couldn't stop. And it flipped me back to the terror that I had felt when I first started with that first vodka and tonic, when I was at this friend's house and his parents were having a garden party. His father asked me if I wanted a drink, and I didn't know what kind of drink to ask for, and I said, I'll have whatever you're having. It was vodka and tonic, and it hit the note. And it started my career. And I realized, why I'd gotten so drunk is I felt so out of place. And I remember the terror I felt when I got slapped and had to go get more. And that was the same terror I'd felt in Paris, when I realized that my life was ruined because I'd made this little series of paper-thin compromises. And I set out to be an artist, and I turned out to be like this hustler. I was doing whatever it took to maintain my lifestyle, man. I didn't have any integrity as far as the arts were concerned. And so when it happened again, when she mentioned going to an AA meeting, I had had enough of it. I said, okay, let's go. And then she stopped and said, would you mind if I got something to drink? She stopped and bought some carrot juice, man. And I just thought, that's it, This is a big mistake. This is sunbeams for Jesus, and I've been captured. Health food freaks for, And we went to Brentwood, and, this guy, the meeting, we were late, and I said, oh, man, please, what's going on here? These people look like they bumped into a net on the tennis court or something, She said, oh, that's the highway patrol sends people here sometimes, and then they said, well, there's a real AA, and they said, there's another meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous here at 8:30, and she said, are you ready to go to dinner now? And I said, no, I'm going to stay and see what a real AA meeting's about. And then this little guy got up and told my story. And he was a guy who told me I had to learn to love you instead of whether I liked you or not. And he taught me how to do that. He taught me that God is love, and that God, and that love for me was not wanting to see you come to harm because of drugs and alcohol. And I was able to turn my life and my will over to the idea that I don't want to see my brothers and sisters die from drugs and alcohol anymore. It's not necessary, man. I also got it firmly in my mind that that's what God is for me. And it's in my serenity and my recovery and my happiness are in direct proportion to how much I care whether you stay sober or not. The days when I don't give a shit if you stay sober are bad, dark days for me. The days when I'm willing to go to any lengths to help somebody stay clean and sober are great and wonderful days for me. And it's strange how often checks follow that change of attitude. Because you can't do it on purpose. I don't know how that works. I met a guy in Las Vegas who said the most important things were to treat other people the way you'd like to be treated and do the right thing. He said, I think he might have been God because he had 44 years of sobriety. And he said, we spend a lot of money and time and effort trying to convince ourselves that we don't know what the right thing to do is. And it was one of those things that changed my life. I know what the right thing to do is. The right thing to do is to love you, whether you give a shit about me or not, and to try to keep my brothers and sisters from dying from drugs and alcohol, no matter what that takes out of my bank account, my life, my social life, or my career. And when I do that, you know, great and wondrous things happen in my life. I find myself 120 feet off the Mexican coast looking at an eagle ray, you know. Or, you know, going to a meeting in England, you know, 2 weeks ago and celebrating the 15th anniversary of a friend of mine, you know, who's in the room tonight, you know, and celebrating the 13th, or the 17th anniversary of my sponsee who moved back there. And, you know, it's like fantastic. But it's an adventure. When it stops being an adventure, you'll find me drinking. If you find me drinking, don't try to 12-step me. Don't try to 12-step me. If you find me drinking, don't try to 12-step me. Because it means I've checked out. You know, it means I've lost the handle. You know, I have no intention of losing the handle. My intention is to go beyond any lengths to keep a hold of what I got. You know, and thanks for paying a 12-step call on me.
Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.